What is up, guys? Welcome to the Shane Vitko podcast. I was on TikTok and today's guest came across my feed and I was like, oh, let's hear what's going on here. Let's see what she's talking about with recovery. And then I did a little bit of a deep dive and I was like, holy shit, this is not the average story that a woman has in life. I think as a society, we expect women to perform a certain role and live a certain way. So anyways, Sabrena, thank you for being here today. And before we get started, I just want to read a quick thing. So, to get you guys familiar with what it was that enticed me to this story, a Kansas City, Missouri, a Kearney, Missouri woman was sentenced in federal court for her role in a $4.3 million conspiracy to distribute large quantities of methamphetamine and heroin through Jackson, Clay, Ray, Clinton, and Buchanan counties. Sabrena Morgan of Kearney was sentenced by U.S. Chief District Judge Greg Case to 9 years in federal prison without parole. The court also ordered Morgan to pay the government a money judgment of $1.5 million based upon her drug responsibility. On June 9th, 2017, Morgan pleaded guilty to participating in a conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine, possession of a firearm, and furtherance of a drug trafficking crime, and maintaining a premises for the purpose of storing, distributing, and using methamphetamine. So, before we get to all that, I need to know a few things. What was life like for you prior to drugs and alcohol?
Prior to drugs and alcohol, I started pretty young. Prior to drugs and alcohol, I was a horse girl. I had a horse trainer. I was going on the weekends to go to horse shows. I was on the road doing stuff. And I really struggled with body dysmorphia. And I struggled with that from a really early age. I'd gained a bunch of weight when I was a kid. People make fun of me. Your typical story. I really struggled with body dysmorphia. So I got into the horses. I was pretty little, but I was already very conscious from like 10 years on. I would say I was really conscious of weight, my jeans, my waistline. I was very worried about that. And I was always doing sit-ups and I was always doing little workouts and I was jogging around the neighborhood, just already not just trying to be fit. I was trying to be skinny. And that was my big thing. And so I remember going to Walmart and like going through the aisles for like the diet pills and stuff like that and testing out some of that stuff, obviously from the truck stops. At first you don't necessarily, when you're younger, you don't necessarily think, oh, well, you don't have the internet either. I didn't. I didn't have something to be like, hey, what can do this? So like, the keep me up type stuff, I realized that was also keep me skinny also. So like I would get stuff at the truck stops, it'd keep me going. Woo, I don't feel like eating. And I felt comfortable when I didn't have that food noise going on. So it was like I was already having this struggle. So when I got introduced to meth, it was a guy that I was dating. And, my dad was an attorney. His dad was a cop. I was a straight A student, but we were dating. He'd been in trouble, whatever. His older brother was in the meth world. And he was like, do you want to try this? He's like, you're always taking diet pills. Like, do you want to try this? And I'm like, sure. Like, if that'll help me stay skinny. And, it's funny to me now because, like, I chat GPT everything now. Like, every single thing. Like, I love peptides. I am chat GPT-ing every single thing that I'm doing. Like, what does this mean? What does this do? How does this help me here? What does this do there? And back then, you're just like, I guess I'll just guinea pig. You don't even check, we just caution to the wind, just let's go. So I did, and I loved it. I didn't do it in a partying manner. I did it more like undercover, and I didn't want to tell anybody I was doing it because I knew it was wrong, and I didn't ever want to give that up. As an addict, like if you can keep stuff under wraps,
Secrets.
If no one knows, then nobody can stop you. You know how that goes. And so that's what I did.
Tell me more about the horses. So when you were in this situation, what did the horses do for you? Like, what did that bring you? Because there must have been some kind of peace in that, right?
Yeah. So I wasn't a people person. I'm still not a people person. Like if you watch my TikToks and everything, you'll end up watching a bunch of animal videos because that's where I'm comfortable. Like that's my peace. So the horses were my peace. So I would get out of school. My mom would take me up to the barn. Like before I drove, my mom would drive me up there. I'd ride my horses all night long. I'd be there all weekend long. My horse trainer was a second mom to me. I was always there. And I started out with one horse. I ended up with 4. And so that was my life, basically being with animals as much as possible. So I would get my drugs and then I would, do just enough to where I wasn't wanting to eat. And then I would go ride my horses and do whatever. And it was funny to me because like we'd be at horse shows and people would be like, it's so great you have her into this. Well, this will definitely keep her out of trouble. And I would just kind of laugh about it because I thought, yeah, if
Little do
only
you
you
know,
knew.
right? And at a certain point, it's taken the drugs or whatever, going to ride the horse, and at a certain point, it turns into just the drugs and no longer the horse, I would imagine.
No, I stuck with the horses. In fact, I had one horse that had colic. So if a horses can't throw up. If they can't poop, their guts will turn. And then you either have to, like, if you can't get it worked out, meaning with oil down their nose and all this crazy stuff, and then you have to walk them for hours. If you can't get them through with that, they will die. So there was a day that my horse colicked. I was up at the barn. I was walking this horse. I'm like, now I'm about 20. I'm walking my horse, walking my horse, walking my horse. And at one point, the vet was like, I think we're in the clear. I think we're okay. Well, one of my friends, I was supposed to go by there, and I didn't know why. Because this is one person that knew my drug use. He knew about it. So I didn't think anything of it. I left the barn, I went by there, and I walked into an intervention, the first intervention. And I was like, and his mom and dad were like, listen, we need to get you some help. Like, we know what you're doing. You're too good a girl for this. Like, we got to get you some help. And I'm thinking, I am going to get out this door and you're never going to see me again. But at that moment, I had a cell phone from the time I was 16 on. So like my dad called and he was like,
Is this the parents of the kid that introduced you to meth?
no,
Okay.
these are different parents, but we were all high school friends. So like they all knew each other. So my dad called, he said, I need you to meet me on Front Street. I've got the truck or the horse in the trailer. We have to get to Columbia, which is about 2.5, 3 hours away. And so my friend's dad was like, you know what? I'll take you. So he drove me there, gets me to the truck, opens up the door, and he said, do not let her get out of this truck without her telling you everything that she needs to tell you. And then looked at me, put me in the truck, and shut the door. And I'm like, shit. Because now I'm stuck in the truck for hours. I've got this sick horse in the back. I'm already very vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like this is my baby. This is my favorite horse.
Mhm.
We've been through everything together. And I'm like, oh my God. So my dad is a very calm, very loving, just kind person. And he's an attorney, so he's seen it all. But because I was lettering in academics and because I was off riding my horses and showing and doing all of these things that showed that I was responsible, that I'm not your typical kid that's involved with drugs. I am showing every sign that I'm doing all the right things, especially back in those days. So I'm in the truck with him. He's driving along. He's like, well, do you want to go ahead and tell me whatever it is that you need to tell me? And I was like, yeah. I do a lot of drugs. I do them every way that you can. And my favorite drug is meth. And I don't know what else to say. And he's like, okay. He's like, that explains so many things. I just thought you were crazy. And I'm like, I'm probably that too. But
Now you had the
so he's,
progression, right? Like it started with like, I remember back in my time, which we're quite similar, but it was like the mini thins that you could get at the gas station.
yes.
Supposed to be for asthma, but you'd eat 6 of them and be like, woohoo. And then Adderall wasn't a huge really thing back then, but I'd imagine
Nope.
something like that. Like you didn't just go directly to meth, right? Like it was kind of the progression of
Yes, I did.
Oh yeah?
I did. I messed around with a little bit of enough diet pills, and I'm talking about it with the boyfriend. And then he was like, you want to try this? And there wasn't that much progression. Unfortunately, I don't have fear. I don't possess fear with a lot of things. And I'm like, yep, I'll be fine.
And
I'm always going to be fine.
and with meth the first time, do you smoke it, sniff it, shoot it?
Snorted it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long are you doing that before you start either smoking it or shooting it?
So I was snorting it and then I started smoking it. And then, like, I would smoke it, I'd go run 10 miles. That was what I did. I like to get high and go run. And I don't know how I didn't have a heart attack. I think back on some of this stuff. I'm like, how am I alive? But
But I
yeah.
think
And then,
you spent a lot of time from what it sounds like convincing yourself that like this isn't an issue, I can handle it, I'm all
oh,
right,
yeah,
and it's like to keep up that facade for as long as you could, right?
I lived a double life. I learned that early, how to live a double life, how to get what I want and how to live a double life. And that became a huge problem later on that caught me into a pretty bad
Right.
sentence. So
Okay, so
yes, that's where that started.
you're in the truck with your dad, you let him know it's meth, and he says, okay, that explains some stuff.
And he says, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I mean, I guess I could go to rehab. I said, I hear Baptist has really good ice cream. I didn't know what else to say. My friend had been at Baptist and he was like, the ice cream there is great.
What is this, a rehab? Is this a hospital?
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
It's a rehab. So little Miss Skinny Girl worried about her weight. I'm like, the only thing I can think of is this guy was like, the ice cream's great. I'm like, cool, sign me up. And so we go on, the horse gets surgery. We are there until 4 a.m. This is mid-afternoon. We were there till 4 in the morning. We watched the entire surgery. They took the intestine out by hand. It was wild. Watched the whole thing. Then by the time they sewed him all up, put the intestine back in, sewed everything up. My dad was like, he's gonna have to stay here for a month. So we're gonna come back next weekend and see him. You know, we'll come back for visitation. But we couldn't transport him for a while. And so I'm like, okay. So this would have been like a Thursday. You know, we're now Friday morning, we're heading back. So it's too late to try to go into a rehab center. You know, back in those days it was a Monday through Friday kind of thing. At least I think that's what we thought. Maybe it wasn't, but that's was our doctor's offices are open Monday through Friday. So that's what we're going to do. So he's like, okay, well, so Friday we drive back. We're probably home mid-afternoon. My mom now knows everything. And so I lived downstairs at their house. I had the entire bottom floor. So I come down there and I'm like, all right, I'm just hanging out, you know, in my
You
little
dealing
area.
Are you dealing with, like, shame and guilt now? Do you feel like you let them down, or
Oh
what's going
yeah.
on for you?
Yeah. I mean, the one person that I'd be afraid to have ashamed of is my dad. That's a worst. But he didn't handle it in a way that he was ashamed. It was more of a concern, like, hey, you know, these things happen. Let's get you taken care of. Let's get you back on the right path. And it's hard for parents when when your kid looks like they're on the right path. Like, now what do we do? Because I've fooled everybody for so long, nobody knows. And so I still wasn't really telling people, like, yeah, I'm gonna go to rehab, whatever, but I'm not telling people. It's not back in the day where you disappear and people really notice. So, um, the plan was I was gonna go to rehab on Monday. So Saturday rolls around. Now I've basically been detoxed for, you know, since Wednesday because Thursday was a horse incident. Friday we were traveling and then we're back. And let me back up just a little bit because the boyfriend that I was with at before that time, the end of that time, he had talked me into shooting up. And I wasn't interested in that. It's not something that I would have jumped into, but he was older and he did it in a very interesting manner where he was like, it looks like I have great big veins. I'm very vascular. When I'm lean, I'm more vascular than most women. Like, I'm a phlebotomist dream to this day. Like, it's bad. So he was like, you look like you shoot up already. And I'm like, no, I don't. You know, we'd argue and stuff like that. And then it got to the point where I was like, fuck it, just go. Let's do it. And I loved it. But he was putting heroin in that meth. He was fixing the shots. So I was no longer just a meth addict. I was on heroin as well, which meth is one thing. You know, you've got your addictions to it. There's definitely an addictive, you know, it's addictive. But because there was heroin involved, by Saturday, I was getting sick. I was getting sick in a way that I was like, is this the flu? Like, I had never come off of meth and felt like that. So I'm like, I'm kind of confused because I don't know to think, oh, I need heroin too, which saved me probably. So I think Saturday night, at some point on Saturday, I am hallucinating. Like, I am so sick, I am army crawling to the bathroom. At one point, I hallucinate that a car pulls up to next to my bed and people are out partying, and I'm like, I can't do this right now. Like, please, I don't feel good. Like, the hallucinations were bizarre. So I was like, there's something else wrong with me. You know, Sunday, a friend of mine called and he's like, I need to tell you something. He's like, I know what happened. He knew the guy that had the intervention. He's like, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what else? What else could you possibly have to tell me? And he's like, this guy's been putting heroin in your meth. And so you're detoxing off of heroin. I don't know if you knew anything about that, but that's why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And I'm like, what? You know, I'm young. I'm very young. And I'm like, you don't even know how to process that. So then Monday rolls around. My dad takes me to Baptist. I meet with the counselor or whoever they are, the intake people. And I tell them everything. You know, I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do something, I'm doing it. Great. I tell them everything. And they are checking me for like needle marks. I'm like, I can just show you. Like, you don't need to look at my whole body because I'm literally telling you, like, don't treat me like that after I'm being forthcoming. But I also let them know about the heroin that I didn't know about. And so they basically came to the conclusion. They're like, well, you've detoxed yourself, so we don't need to admit you. We'll just do an outpatient. I'm like, all right, cool. But it was this weird, like, as I was doing this outpatient program, like, they had us going to an AA and AA type stuff as well. But what was really interesting is that they also put me on an eating disorder floor for part of the day. So, like, I would do the rehab part, but I'd also do eating disorder, which I found to be such an interesting contrast because on the addiction floor, all we did was talk about drugs and war stories. And, if you're not in an immediate group, people are off to their sides, they're telling war stories. And there's nothing about this that feels like I'm progressing in the correct direction. It's only making me want to go get high. But then I would go to eating disorder floor and be like, there's not Twinkies and Ho-Hos hanging from the fucking ceiling. And they're not talking about food. They're talking about, okay, where did this come from? Let's start, breaking into this process of what's triggering this? Where did this begin? And it was more empathetic and more psychotherapy kind of, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was a,
It's more solution based, right? Like I remember when
yes.
I was probably 16 and the first time I'd ever been admitted to a psychiatric unit, and like I was smoking a ton of weed and I was angry, and I had to, part of my release was to like go to this day thing, right, with other like 16-year-old kids that weren't in school. And we would go sit in this place all day long. And it was the same thing where it was like, it was definitely more detrimental, right? It was like more kids
Yeah.
talking about the same stuff. And now, not only do I know the kids from my town that do this, now I just met 4 other guys that feel the same way as me that do the same thing. And it's not long before one of them goes, hey, man, I got my car. You want to get out of here and go do some stuff? Hell yes, I do. You know what I mean? And I often wonder about that in the way of like, kind of some of these treatment formats and how I've seen a lot working in treatment and how some of these formats are. And I am a big supporter of that. Like you said, if it's just left to your own devices to sit around and tell war stories, what good is that doing, right? You're reinforcing to me that, oh, this is an okay thing. Like there has to be some kind of not just talking about what you do or what got you here, but what's the solution towards how can we start changing your thinking or start getting you onto, a road of making better choices, right?
And back in those days, there wasn't as much talk about triggers and feelings that trigger use and things like that. But what I got from the eating disorder floor was more of that. So when I would go back down to the addiction floor or I'd go to these meetings or whatever, all I saw was war stories and no structure. On the eating disorder portion, it was more structure and when you start feeling this way, think about this, how do we kind of rewire your brain, basically? But what's interesting to me is that you go on an elevator, you go 2 floors down, and you come into another place that's supposed to be helping people with addiction. And they're so far removed from what the 2 floors up is doing for something totally different. But it's the same thing at the end of the day. There's a structure, there's a perception, there's a mindset that you're not able to control. Same thing with addiction as it is with eating disorder. Everything is so very similar,
We're
and
gonna,
yet they were handling it so different.
we're gonna get to that too, because I also, I agree with some of that stuff. But before we get to that, what did you want to be prior to getting into meth and now you're in rehab and all this stuff? Like, did you have aspirations? Like, I'm going to be a nurse. I want to go be a rocket scientist. I want to be a lawyer like my dad. Like, what did you think your future held for you prior to what ended up happening?
Oh, I went to law school. Through all of that, I went through, I lettered in academics in high school. I went through college. I got my undergrad degree. And after that rehab stint, I kicked it back up and kept on going. And nobody questioned me anymore because I didn't talk to anybody. I talked to one person I got it from, and that's it. I was like, I know how to do this now. I went into law school. As soon as I got into law school, I took my LSAT, got accepted into law school. And when I got into law school, I was like, all right, it's time to quit doing drugs. So I'm going to go into law school. Now I've done meth for all of these years. I'm going to go into law school and I'm just going to quit. Everything's going to be fine. I'm going to live happily ever. No, that's not how that works. I started having like a panic disorder and
Yep.
I'd be leaving law school and I'm like driving and I'd have a panic attack. I have to pull over. So next thing I know, and I mean, when I say clean, at this point in my life, that means I'm not doing meth. Am I still out on the weekends going to parties and after parties? Am I still doing some ecstasy or some acid here and there? Absolutely. Because in my brain, that wasn't the problem. I'm good at separating the thing to
I
be
think a
like, oh,
lot of
that's nothing.
people like, I know the first even couple times I attempted to get sober was like, heroin is my problem. Opiates is my problem. As long as I'm not doing heroin, I'm not doing Suboxone, any of that stuff, I'm good. I can still drink. I can still smoke weed. Like, that's not my issue. And I think it's exactly that. Until I realized I'm the issue and I use drugs and alcohol so that I don't have to feel or, I can fill this void of the shame and guilt or whatever it is that I've felt and carried for so long. And I think that takes what it takes to get to that place, you know?
It does, yes. So I did at that point stop using meth. Um, I did 1 full year of law school and I quit. I told my dad, I was like, "This is not what I wanna do with my life." And he's like, "Thank God." I was like, "What?" I didn't wanna hurt his feelings, but he's like, "Oh, thank God." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because you would've gotten pissed off and told the judge to go fuck themselves, and then you would end up in contempt of court. Like, you would spend all of your money in contempt of court. Like, that's how you." And I'm like, "Wha." I'm like, "Yeah, you're probably right." So, I quit law school, I got into real estate, and I started doing really well, real quick. And I was drinking and I was doing, I was dabbling here and there with some coke. I met my husband. We had mutual friends. We got together, had a hell of a fun time. 6 months later, we're married, buy a house. I'm like, "Okay, I'm doing it. Like, this is all working." I walked away from that. I walked away from all those people. Okay, cool. And then, what happened was, I got pregnant with my daughter and I realized that I'd made a huge mistake with him. So happy I had my daughter, but he
How
started
how
really.
how old are you when you had your kid?
I was 27 when I had her,
Okay.
and I never wanted kids, but I was always like, "I'll have 1 kid, call it a day." And I had this kid that was the most sweet baby, slept through the night. I could put her in a pumpkin seat and go show houses with her. She was awesome. And so everything was cool because I would work so much with her, like, during the week. On the weekends, I was selling condos and he was off work, so he had her. So it was like we were living 2 different lives already, but then it got to the point where I was like, "I can't do this." And I have this thing where I don't talk about my problems with people. Like, nobody's gonna know I'm really having a problem with something until it's erupted into something that's so out of control. And that's been a problem that I've had my entire life. It's a theme of mine. So, like, I hadn't told my dad or my mom or really anybody the problems that I was having at home. And so I told my dad early on, I was like, "I want to get a divorce." And he's like, "Nope. You're gonna wait until that kid can walk well and talk well, and then you can consider it." So, by the time she hit 4, I was like, "I can't do this anymore." I had got she can walk well, she can talk well, but, until you go through a custody battle, until you go through stuff like that, you have no idea what you're about to get in, tangled up with. And so, we get into this custody situation and he's not playing ball. He's not I like, for instance, like, I would have birthday parties for her. I'd have all these kids at my house because it was my time to have her. It was my birthday to have her, and he wouldn't bring her home for 2 days. So I'm like, "I'm sorry." It was the constant of that, and, the depression immediately started when I didn't have her, and so it was the depression, then it was the anxiety of, "What is this transition gonna be this time? What's he gonna do this time to mess with me?" Because there's only one way to get to me, and that's through my daughter. Like, you can't say anything to me that's gonna hurt my feelings or offend me, but if you say it to my daughter, we got
Yeah.
problems. If you do something to her, we got big problems. So,
Real quick.
yeah,
So, while you're pregnant with her, I imagine you're sober, right?
so super sober.
Right, and then now she's born, and are you still kinda dabbling here and there? Meth's kinda out
No,
of the picture, nothing's around the first 4
nothing.
years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sober as can be. I mean, I would drink here and there, but when after she was born, I went on this, big weight loss journey and I was hitting the gym and I was conscious of calories and things like that.
So
So
the eating
drinking,
disorder is still kinda alive and well at this point-ish?
the eating disorder is still with me to this very day.
Right.
And I use it as a superpower. And I just embrace the fact that it's always going to be there and it's okay. But I did it back then too, where I got, very structured, very disciplined in working out with food. So in that time, drinking, I could have a drink and I'm calculating those calories and then I'm walking once those calories have filled up my macros for the, I was very conscious about that. And I am today too.
That doesn't
Uh,
sound exhausting at all.
It's so exhausting and I love it. Love it. But so when she was little, I worked really hard to get the weight off, to do what to look good again. I was just overlooking at myself the way I looked. So I would have a drink here and there, but for the most part, I didn't start drinking until the custody thing started transitioning, until I was just trying to get out of my head. And then it was like, it got to be a free for all. He had a girl he was dating that he ended up marrying. And she would start filing restraining orders against me. The first one, she goes to Clay County and she files this restraining order. And my dad, I called him. I'm like, she's filed a restraining order. And he's like, what did you do? I'm like, honest to God, this time it's not me. I didn't do it. I mean, I'm an asshole. I'm a fucking terrorist when I want to be. So for him to say that, like, I thought the same thing. Like, what are people going to say? Because that's something, these are things I would do. I would terrorize somebody. But I'd never seen her in real life. So we go to court. She admits in court that she has never seen me in person. This is the first time. And the judge throws her out and the case out, and she busts through the double doors and proceeds to have a tantrum that would rival any of my childhood tantrums on the floor in front of God and everybody. It was crazy. And I'm just like, what in the hell? So I think it's over. I think who's going to go back to that scene again? Well, she did. So like my daughter had her tonsils out and they didn't want me at the surgery center. So they filed a restraining order against me. Well, it takes 2 weeks to fight that. So once you get served, you have 2 weeks where you have to stay away. This happened 5 times where they just kept using the court. It would always get thrown out, except for the last time the judge pulled my ex-husband up there and he was like, you know what? I'm going to give Miss Morgan something she didn't even ask for. And I'm like, wonder what I'm going to get. He proceeds to give me a restraining order against her. And he was like, you need to get your purse and your stuff at these soccer games and you need to leave. Well, because I never filed for this restraining order, I couldn't enforce it. So I go to the next soccer game. They call the police on me and say they have a restraining order. Cops show up. Of course, they don't have a restraining order against me, but the damage is already done. So like in my brain, I'm like, it's better for me not to be around. Not because I'm doing something wrong, but because I'm causing so much stress to my daughter and the cops were just constantly involved. This is when I wasn't doing anything. And I just slowly lost my mind. And I ended up going to the doctor and I got Xanax and I got Adderall. And so I was probably a couple months into the Adderall when I thought, this feels familiar, but this ain't ever going to be my old friend. So I went back. I went back to meth, went to a bar, accidentally on purpose ran into somebody I knew that had it, smoked a bowl, and it was on. But at this point, when you're older, you buy everything in bulk. You go to Costco, you go to Sam's Club, you're always going to buy, well, at least I do, I buy everything in bulk. So I got further into this, this old friend of mine, the next thing I know, I've got ounces, then I've got more, and I've got more, and my idea of running out was getting under an ounce. And it happened quick. So I say quick, but it was a long, goofy road to go down, but it wasn't getting any better. And the further and further you get into this stuff, the harder it is to extract yourself out of that lifestyle. And then the crazy part about it is that I can honestly tell you that if it wasn't for meth, I would have blown my brains out. So if I didn't have that release, I would have killed myself because I sat there with a gun many times in my mouth thinking, I thought to myself so many times, I was like, watch, I'm going to pull this damn trigger. My luck is I won't die. I'm like, I know I'm not going to die.
Well,
I wanted to.
what's
I was
wild
so
is
tired.
what's wild is that, I had someone else on the podcast too who said that OxyContin saved his life. And it's like, it's crazy to think that something that is kind of long-term killing you is what can save you from that today I'm going to take my own life kind of situation, where it's, the worst thing possible to choose because you're going like, well, this saved me, if you will, when it's really something that is like so damaging long term, which ultimately can serve the same effect, but you feel like it's buying you some time. So now you're getting ounces or whatever. Now at some point you decide you're going to start selling drugs. Now, is this like nickel and diamond just to stay above water to feed your habit? Like I would get drugs and be like, this is what I can do and not have to spend money. The rest I have
Yep.
to sell, until that turned into, I was not a great drug dealer, because then I would go like, okay, well, just a few more of these and I'll just take from my cut, and
I always had a lot of connections that were far up the food chain. And so I had a few people that were close to me that were fairly responsible people that also had an addiction as well. And but they were quiet people that, weren't out loud and proud, running around, running and gunning and doing dumb shit. So, they would start coming to me and be like, "Hey, can you help me? I really need to get some shit." And they were kind of on my same level where we're buying more in bulk and more and more. And so then I'm like, yeah, so I get a key here and there. And well, okay. So then it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And, as you're going through it,
I
what's
mean, let's back
wild,
up for a minute. It takes a lot of
yeah,
balls to buy a kilo of anything. That's just
not really.
the average person is either A, can't afford that, or doesn't know where to get that. Like, that is not just addict behavior. That's a big responsibility. I got to imagine the first time, does that give you kind of a sense of power, or like, fuck yeah, or like something? Or is it just another Tuesday and you have a kilo of methamphetamine?
It was just another Tuesday. Like,
Sick.
I remember the first time I was like, this seems ridiculous, but it became comfortable very easily to me in a way that doesn't make sense. Like, I kind of keep to myself. I'm just, out doing my own thing. I'll network with a couple of people and do what I need to do, but it didn't send off the flags that should have been sent off in my head. I didn't
Now,
keep it at my house.
and now your number's not just like plastered on a wall. You have like 5 people that you're dealing with.
Right.
Right, and so the level
And
of, like, trust and, like, I should be cool because it's just these
yeah,
5 people. I mean, did it ever enter your head, what if this person gets pulled over or rats on me or anything like that? I mean, it
it did. Yeah, it did. But at the same time, here's the funny thing about having a background after going to law school for a year. They would have to set me up. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm not thinking federal, I'm thinking state. So in my brain, I'm thinking if they get, I'm paying pretty close attention to these people and what's going on in their lives and where they're at and what they're doing. I'm getting a little creepy just knowing who's doing what and what's going on with them. And like, I'm pretty creepy when it comes to that. I'm paying attention. I'm definitely paying attention. But I thought, if somebody gets pulled over and they do give 'em my name, they would still have to set me up. Like something would have to happen. And so, I did the weird stuff where like, I wouldn't let people talk to me on the phone. I'd be like, take your clothes off. I'd get into the weird shit, not to glorify. And I hate glorifying and glamorizing any of this shit because people are like, oh, tell me about that. And I'm like, we're not doing that. I'm not getting into it because that part of it, although I have wonderful stories, I have really fun, old Sabrina stories, which was the biggest part of my problem because the DEA, like if you read my discovery, you would think that these people were sitting at a bar having a drink, sitting around just telling Sabrina stories. So that's part of the problem was that there was people willing to go in and tell. Well, 2014, I didn't have a huge social media presence or anything like that. But people knew who I was, just would see me out. I wasn't like out and about doing a lot of stuff, but there was some people that knew who I was. I was getting sloppier. The longer I got into this, I got sloppier. I was high. I wasn't thinking this thing through very well. I let a couple of people in that I should never have let in, and I knew better. They were younger, louder. It was a bad idea. But there was a guy that really was trying to date me, and that wasn't working. He was trying to do business with me too, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't do that. And so he got really pissed off. So I started getting all these text messages from this guy saying, I'm going to the feds. These are all the things that I'm telling him. I saw you with this many kilos. I saw this. I saw that. This person saw you with that. This person knows you did this, blah, blah, blah. Pages upon pages upon pages of text messages. And I'm like, oh, it's time to pump the brakes. Like, I'm done. I'm done with everything, like right now. This
and
was 3 days before I got shot.
and this is the first time you realize I'm in deep.
I'm fucked.
And how long has this been? How long have you been kinda really moving some product?
Years.
Okay. Alright.
It's been a long time. It just had gotten wilder. The ride had gotten a little wilder towards the end. So this is 3 days before I got shot. So I get all these text messages and I'm like, I'm done. I'm fucking done. I am done with all this shit. I'm done fucking around. I'm done. And then I had bought this truck that was like this old, it was like a 98 two-door Yukon. and it was going to be like my toy truck. Like I was going to lift it and do fun shit to it. I was really excited about this truck, but I bought it, switched the wheels out because I needed pretty wheels, but the tires were shit. But my 4-wheel drive was out. So I was like, I called a buddy. I was like, listen, there's something wrong with this 4-wheel drive. I think it's a carter pin. I need your help. I need you to come look at this thing. I know a little bit, but I don't know enough to like do something and then go drive it. Like I'm not that good. So he came over and his wife had come over too. His wife and his son came over and they put the son to sleep like on the couch or something. My daughter was in her bedroom, passed out. And so he worked on the truck. The wife and I hung out. And then he was like, do you want to test drive this? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's run it down the street. So we got about a mile down the street.
And you're driving?
And he's driving.
He's driving. Okay.
He's also wanted. He's wanted. And I knew it. I'd been in high-speed chases with him already. You know, I had my daughter week on, week off. And when I didn't have her, it was a wild, wild west. When I did have her, I would shut it down the best that I could. But of course, coming off all that meth, it's real hard to shut that shit down and be a good mom. I wasn't a good mom. I mean, she's turned out to be a wonderful person, but I did a lot of wrong stuff. I shouldn't have done any of that shit.
Right.
But you know what? I did some wrong things. So I had her and, you know, there wasn't like drug use going on. It wasn't, you know, anything wild or anything like that. Drove down the street with them. When we got down the street, so this is rural. This is a rural area. And so we get down the street, it's snowing and it's clear that the 4-wheel drive's not working. I was like, turn around. We tried this. Whatever you just did not work. So let's go back. We go to turn around and a cop rolls up on us out of nowhere. This is rural county area. It is now after midnight. And I'm like, the cop rolls up on us, puts his lights on. And I'm like, well, you're wanted. What do you want to do? And he's like, I got to make a run for it. I was like, all right. I just put my seatbelt on because I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Right? There's no guns in the car. There's no drugs in the car. The only gun that I had at that time was at my house. It was my 12 gauge and it was legal. I was not a felon. It was at my house. So we take off and we head in the same, you know, we're both heading in the same direction. But the cop never pulls out after us. So we go up to the top of the hill. It's snowing, it's icing. We have bald tires and no 4-wheel drive. So I'm thinking, this is going to be a really short trip. And I gave $1,000 for his truck. I don't give a fuck, whatever. So we get up to the top of the hill. There's another cop already up there with stop sticks that he tries to throw and clearly has not been trained to throw. And so we just make a right and we're heading down this other street and I hear sirens. I don't see cops. It's the weirdest high-speed chase I was ever in because like, I don't know what's going on. So anyway, he takes a left on this road and I'm like, I don't think this thing goes through. This is 2014. You have to remember, like, we don't have navigation all over the place. We don't have like that built into the car. You don't have all that stuff. And I'm like, dude, I've never been down this road. I don't know if this is a through street, but I always had rules with dating and high-speed chases. Once you hit the accelerator, don't ever let off. And you never turn around, ever. You go and you don't come back. Well, we turned around. When we turned around, we came up over the hill and there was a cop car sitting off to the side. The cop was out of the car. Nobody was in harm's way. There's nobody in front of us. It's wide open road. There's no people out. The houses sit back off the road. Nobody was in harm's way. We were going a whopping maybe 20 miles an hour, if that, because it was so slick. He's out of his car. He aims. He fires 5 times into the front of the truck and he's shining his light. He looked to where I was at. Now, mind you, at this point, the cops know something's going on, but they can't put their finger on it. But now they have pages of text messages from this guy, and all of their suspicions are now confirmed. They've got to get me because I'm the asshole they could never quite get. And so they're pissed. So he sees where I'm at in the truck, and as we come by, he shoots 5 times at the back of my head. And as he's shooting, I feel one go into my head. Now, it comes through the window. People are like, you couldn't be alive. Well, if you shoot through a window, the bullet's already kind of done its thing. So then you're just getting the aftermath of it. So yes, it lodged into the back of my head. Blood is going everywhere.
But is this like, I mean, so you guys are moving, he starts shooting, starts through the front and then keeps shooting? Because how does it get you in the back of the head?
So he shoots 5 times in the front of the truck. As we pass by him, he then now is at an angle and is shooting through the back. So in those types of trucks, you have the back window and then you have those side back windows. So he shoots 5 times through the back side window in a very tight pattern because I kept that glass for a long time because I was like, nope, I'm never letting this thing go. I want to have this pattern right here forever. And I finally
This is
let it
10
go.
this is 10 shots deep now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and were
Yeah.
all 10
No,
placed
here's the thing. I don't know how many he shot into the front of the truck. I thought it was 5. I don't know 100%. And when you're on the receiving
right,
end of a gun, you don't know how,
you're not
you
counting,
can't hear it.
right.
So
Well,
how
what I
many
mean
went
is
in the
too,
front? I'm not sure.
was he going for driver and you, or do you feel like the whole time it was strictly targeting you?
It was strictly me. The pattern was very, very specific of where he was going. He was shooting for the back of my head. So there was 2 bullets in the headrest that were lodged into the metal parts of the headrest. 2 beside there, 1 in my head, and then 2 in my dash. That's what I recovered after they took the truck to the Sally port. So there was 5, and then there was 5 holes in that back window.
Right,
That's what I know for sure. As for the front of the truck, I am not 100%
right.
sure.
So
I know that they shot through.
blood everywhere. This guy keeps driving,
Yeah.
stops. What's he do? Panic?
He's like, "Oh my God, I gotta get you." He's like, "They're shooting at us." I said, "Yeah, I know. I just got shot." And I am the best person to have in the shittiest situation.
So
Like
you stay conscious through this whole thing.
conscious and calm.
What's
I'm
going
not
through your
yelling.
so in this moment, you calm? Do you feel any pain? Is it hot? Or you just can notice, shit, there's a lot of blood?
It's hot and I can smell my hair and my flesh burning. That's what I smelled.
Jeez.
And I'll never forget that smell, but I remember vividly the smell of burning hair and burning flesh from that hot bullet. There's blood pouring everywhere. And when he said that, I went like this and I had blood pour everywhere. And so he's like, "I have to get you to the hospital." I'm like, "You're not going to get me to the hospital. You're not going to get me anywhere." I was like, "I'm getting out." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm getting out." I jump out and he's stopping. We're not going fast enough to get anything accomplished. I jump out. I was like, "Drive it till the wheels fall off. Good luck." Slam the door. And then I'm standing there and, in those weird little moments, the snow is falling down on me. I have blood pouring into my muck boots. I'm like, what the fuck? And I hear like there's something in my head that's like, what are you going to do now? Are you going to fight for this? Because I was so suicidal at this point. I was so ready to die that I am standing there pissed off. Like, how the fuck do you get shot in the head and you're not dead? And I'm still fucking alive. I'm still standing here walking around breathing. And I know that sounds like bullshit to a lot of people, but just somebody that's an addict that really wants out of that lifestyle, that can't get out of that lifestyle, you want to fucking die. And a cop can shoot through the back of your window and hit you in the back of the head with a bullet and you're still fucking alive. What the fuck did I do to deserve this? You know what I mean?
So what comes of that? Do they take you to the hospital? You end up not getting arrested for that?
Well, that's the funny part. So I go to the hospital. They take me, an ambulance comes and takes me. I had my hair up in like a high, messy bun. And the ambulance guy was like, he rolls up. I said, "Hey, why don't you just take this thing out of my head and I'm going to walk home real quick." And he's like, I can't do that. He's like, "Get in the truck." So I get in there and, we're talking and stuff. He's like, "Do you think your hair stopped the bullet? Like, how come it didn't go all the way through your head? Like, how are you still talking to me?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't know." He's like, "This is crazy. I'm sitting here talking to you. You have a bullet in your head." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." I'm like, "I have no idea." So we get to the hospital, DEA shows up, cops are all over the place, and they're outside my door talking like they think I'm passed out. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm awake. I'm conscious. I can hear everything that you're saying. So if you're going to talk out there and you don't want me to hear you, might want to go on down the hallway or come on in. Let's talk." They did not, nobody knew what to do. So anyway, um, a doctor pulled the bullet out of the back of my head and it had not gone through my skull. It was just right there. He pulled it out. As soon as that came out, I passed out and my adrenaline left my body. So everything after that was just flashes that I remember. And then the next thing I know, my dad was coming to get me. They didn't charge me. What are they going to charge me with? There was no evidence that we shot. They
But
fucked up.
do you file a lawsuit or anything for being shot?
Oh God, I wanted to file a lawsuit so bad. I was so fucking angry. At the end of the day, I was more angry I was still alive, but I was so angry. And of course, my dad's a lawyer. And I'm like,
Yeah,
they can't just shoot people for no fucking reason. They can't shoot the passenger. But good luck finding somebody to take that lawsuit. You already look like a piece of shit because
right.
normal people don't get shot in the head by the cops. Unless you're doing, and that's something that's already instilled into our brains. You don't get fucked with by the cops unless you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Guess what? I was doing a lot of shit wrong. Did I deserve to get shot? Nah. That was bad. But I didn't file a lawsuit. And they didn't press charges. They paid for the whole hospital stay. They paid for all that. I never got a bill. And so then it was 6 months after that I got indicted. And when I went home from the hospital, I was sick. Like, I had probably the worst concussion you could ever possibly think of. Like, it was bad. Then I was trying to come off drugs, but I'd have a couple people stop by. They'd, get me some shit here and there. So I'm still not completely sober. Getting shot in the back of the head, and that whole scene didn't do it for me,
No.
but getting indicted did. That was the day of the big change. And the reason for that, so it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd been at my parents' house. I was on my way home. And I come up over the hill, and my whole driveway is full of feds. There's like rangers out in my pasture, and the cops surround me and like pull me out. So they put me in this Jeep. It was like a Jeep Grand Cherokee with this officer that had a Russian accent. And I'm just sitting there quiet. I'm watching, them swarm my house, and I'm like, I am so fucked. And I didn't say anything out loud. And he was like, he's like chit chatting with me about how he was in the military and how he ate bugs for protein. And like, we had some funny but interesting conversations, just enough to kind of pull me up out of what was going on, just enough. So, we chit chatted for just a little bit. He's like, you seem like a really good person. He's like, I know this really sucks, and I know you're really scared. He's like, this does suck, and you are going to do some time. He's like, but what you need to really think about is the fact that how deep you were into all this stuff. You have two options. Either you're going to die or go to prison. So like, yeah, this sucks. Yeah, you're going to go through some stuff. He's like, but you have to look at it with perspective of, I have this wonderful opportunity. This is opportunity. So he's like, honestly, from what I know, there's no way you could have ever gotten out of this. Now, this was his last day. He told me that he was retiring. This was his last rest. He didn't know how to get to the police station. He didn't know. I felt like I was getting punked, but he was the kindest man who took this one vulnerable moment and was like, really changed my perspective, and like took that time to really not just like start beating me into oblivion on like, you got to do this. He built we built a little rapport. And then, he's like, let me show you a different way to look at this. And that was it. I never saw him again. But to me, that was such a pivotal moment in my life, probably the biggest one. And so I try to talk to people that are in law enforcement. I'm like, I know you get, knocked down and people don't like you and all this stuff happens and people just keep getting in trouble. I was like, but there will come a time where there'll be that one person that if you just take a couple minutes to talk to, you can change her life.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me. So let me encourage you with that. So
I think
anyway,
that's important. I think that's an important aspect too, is because when you do live a life of crime and drugs and stuff, it's like two things was A, you got to pay to play. You got to know the
we
rules
do.
to the game. If you're going to be, like you said, there was never been a time in my life that I've been arrested, pulled over by the police, that I was sober and doing the right thing and things
Yeah.
went sideways. Every single time I was involved in something I shouldn't have been, and I made it worse, right? But I do think about, even though that was never my experience in the way of like having that talk or going to prison. None of that stuff changed me. But I do think back to times where people humanized the situation and didn't just treat me like a common thug and did like man, you get so much more potential than this. Like, cops from my town that knew me that were like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is not it, And even though it didn't ring true in the moment or I didn't take it in, years later, when I do get sober and I start to get back on track, I look back to those times and go, man, I am grateful. Even though it didn't register then, I am grateful that I had people like that saw me as a human being, like that the drugs were making me someone else than who I really was, And I do. I think that's huge. So you get arrested. So you fight the case for 3 years from home. Are you on an ankle bracelet kind of thing, fighting like I'm taking this to the hoop? Or are you
No,
waiting for a
I'm just sitting there waiting for the world to end, basically. Like, um,
but like the 3
I
years that you're fighting it, are you in like locked up or you're home? You're fighting
no,
from the street, right?
I'm on the street. I'm
Yeah.
on pretrial. I was going to take a plea, but they superseded twice. So they just kept dragging it out. And it wasn't on me, but my attorney would be like, hey, I was like, am I taking my plea soon? Which I hadn't fully I was not fully understanding that when I took my plea, I was going to have to turn myself in because I thought all that time I'd spent out doing the right thing and making
Would
all these
come.
correct decisions and I'm clean and I went to 9 months of outpatient rehab and I start teaching art classes and I'm doing all this good shit and I'm a positive figure in my daughter's life. Hey, look at all the shit I'm doing. I never dreamed they were going to make me turn myself in. And so and my lawyer had told me, many times, but you know how you don't hear things. You hear what you want to hear. As humans, we're morons when it comes to that. Like, you hear exactly what you want to hear. Cause like I'll talk to people that are involved in stuff and I'm like, I need to know what really happened and not what you heard. And they're like, what? I'm like, let's try to decipher through some of this, shall we? Like, let's think about it. No, I went to federal holding. My attorney, his wife was having a baby, so I stayed in for 3 days. He was a little busy, which was probably the best thing for me because I had 3 days to sit and think in a tiny cell, jam-packed with people, and I'm not a people person. I was in a little county jail that they had federal holding in. And that was eye-opening. So then they pulled me back and they put me out on pretrial. And I had a pretrial officer that came and met me like the first time. He was really cool. Like he was another throughout this whole process, I've had the best interactions with people. And it's weird because it's so different than what most people say. The first time he met me, he was like, "Hey," he's like, "Are you ready to give this rehab thing a try? I'd really like to get you involved in rehab. Feds pay for that. Did you know that? If you're on pretrial and you want rehab, they will pay for that." I was like, I have my own insurance. Such an asshole. Who does it? And so I did. I got involved with Rediscover, which is out in Lee Summit, Missouri. Awesome. It wasn't like the rehab I'd ever been, like the one I'd gone to before. It was, people talk about their feelings and triggers, and it was more empathetic and it was more systematic. Like the eating disorder school I had experienced before. It was more of that than it was, let's sit around and tell war stories. It was great. And I still have friends from that rehab. Like I still keep in contact with people. I made a couple really good friends there. And even though I've been in prison and everything else, I'm still in contact with them frequently. And everybody's doing good. So I did the rehab. He wanted me to go to meetings. The only meetings I'd ever been to was that first rehab. And so I was like, okay. So I get online, I start looking for meetings. And I went to my first one and it wasn't exactly warm and fuzzy. And then I went to another one it was some other people were going to it. It was kind of a men's meeting more, but I was like, I have to go to a meeting, so I'll go to this one, I guess. And like they wanted me to share. So I shared some of my story and they didn't believe me. The guy was like, "That's not true. Get out." I was like, "What?" It was very weird. It was very judgmental. And I was just like, I shared part of getting shot in the drug, with how the drugs, all of that stuff. And there was nothing warm and fuzzy about it. Then I get into another meeting and it's something else. And then another meeting and it's something else. And I'm talking to my PO through all this. And I'm like, dude, I don't think I'm doing this right. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not having luck. I would go to a different meeting and then another meeting. I went to a women's group. Equally got weird. And then finally the last one, and I won't go into that story necessarily, but it was so bad that I called my PO. I said, I have to tell you a story. So I told him the story. And when I got done talking, he's like, "You're done. Don't bother. You don't need to go anymore. Just don't bother." Because it was like, I'm trying at this point to do the right thing. I'm trying so hard to do all the correct steps. And it's setting me back. Like I think there are wonderful meetings that I know we're gonna get into that some more, but it was really just it was not good for me. It was
Well, and I see you get a lot of heat online for that you're not in recovery and that because
yeah.
you're not working in a 12-step program that you're just clinging on and you're white knuckling and everything. So since that wasn't, which I don't agree with, but I love AA and it saved my life, but what I also tell people is that AA taught me how to live a life outside of AA. So, and I also know people that have got sober and recovered from the life they were living. Like if you are doing things different today and you have a life that is respectable, honorable, and you're doing the right thing, then who is anyone to say that that's not the correct way? So since that didn't work for you, what worked? Did you go to therapy? Did you just, have a Jesus moment? Did you start, taking ayahuasca? Like what was it that ended up working for you?
So I actually got into boxing. I started like at 9 rounds. I had boxed years and years and years ago and I loved it. So my dad got me a membership for like 9 rounds and I was like, we'll see. So I started going and then I went to another gym that had like it was more of a boxing gym. So I got into that. And what was
And
really
wait,
interesting is like they did
is
like the Mike Tyson. What?
is this during pretrial that you start this
Yeah.
kind of thing? All right, because you've been
Yeah.
clean now for almost 11 years, right? So this is during pretrial. You're like, I'm cool. I'm gonna start taking the steps that I need to.
Yeah,
to get on
this
film.
July, I'll be 12 years clean.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I got involved with boxing, which was really interesting because, when they're calling out the numbers and you've got punches that correlate to it, what's interesting is that you start bringing your mind and your body back together, and I found that to be really an important tool because I was so far gone. Obviously, I had a terrible concussion and obviously I'd come off a lot of drugs, which by the way, I think it was a good 18 months when I was clean when I started really feeling like a human that was possibly going to be able to fly right. It takes a long time to rewire yourself, but I started feeling like I was back in my body again, not just like floating around and like bumping into the parameters of my being. Like I felt like my soul was going back into my body and I was able to connect with myself by going through that. And do you know what I mean? Like the Mike Tyson way of boxing where they do the 1, 2, you just do that. And it's not anything complicated, but it's the repentance and it's just having that somehow correlate with your body and being able to make those movements did a lot for me. And then that boxing gym shut down and I got that email on Christmas and I was like, I thought I was going to drive into a ditch. And then I had a friend that was at another gym that was like, hey, why don't you come check out this gym? I'm like, all right. So I went in there and I walked in and I ran into one of my very dear old friends who was a very large bodybuilder. And he knew everything that I was going through. He had been through the feds. And so he'd already done all of this and he knew exactly where I was at. And so I walked in, we were sitting there talking and he was like, why don't you start lifting with me? And I was like, okay. He's like, meet me here tomorrow at 7 a.m. Okay. So I started working out with him and started lifting. And I was doing like these crazy heavy lifts. And, he would throw all kinds of stuff at me and I'd just go through it. I'd never complain about anything. I was just like, oh, here's a program. This is what we're going to do. And he's like, are you not sore? Like, what are you still doing? Like 2 weeks into this, he's like, what are you still doing here? Nobody hangs this long. I was like, no, you're not getting rid of me. Oh, we're doing the damn thing.
Do
So
do you
by the
feel
time,
do you feel like you trade one addiction for another, but at least it's healthy? And is that okay?
oh,
What do you say to
yeah.
people that say you just traded one addiction for the other, you didn't do any real work on yourself?
I don't care. I mean, if people are like, "Oh, that's just trading one addiction for another," I'm okay with it. Like I feel like the same thing with the eating disorder. I think you can take that and make it a superpower
Well, I hate to be the
because
bearer of bad
everybody's
news.
got underlying weird problems.
Yeah, and I feel like people also trade addiction for 12-step programs, right? Where it's like that now becomes my life and at least it's healthy, you know? But what did you do to address underlying trauma or start talking about how do I feel feelings or how do I process that? I mean, because I get the boxing and I get all that stuff with the mind body connection, but at some point you have to unload some shit on somebody, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that came when I turned myself into federal holding because I sat in federal holding for a year. I was in a maximum security, obviously, because it's federal holding, and I was in a cell by myself for almost a year. And I had a lot of time to think. And honestly, I feel like everybody should be put in a cell by themselves for a considerable amount of time because to this day, I can sit and stare at a wall and not give a fuck. I'm not in a hurry to do anything. I can sit and stare at that wall. I don't have a problem with that. And so I had a lot of time to think. I started reading the Bible. I found God in federal holding. I got baptized there. I had a chaplain that was amazing. He helped me work through a lot of stuff. I have had a very dark past that, I've skimmed over quite a bit of it, but going in depth, yeah, there was a lot of darkness and I was a really dark person. So he prayed with me through all this stuff and it was great because like he was wonderful and it was wild to go through that and be so alone, but also not feel like you were alone. It felt like, yeah, of course it felt unfair and it felt horrible to be away from my family, but at the same time, there was a part of me that was like, you need exactly this. Like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So I wasn't mad about it. And I kind of let go of that and I let go of the outside world because while I was in federal holding, I got my PSR back, my pre-sentencing report, and I was trying to find a year range, but it wasn't there. It just said life. So I was originally looking at life. My discovery was pretty bad, but they actually went back in and fought some stuff. There was some people that were trying to extort money from my family that were like, yeah, we really don't know who she is, but if you pay us this, then we'll recant our statement. Honey, there's 5,000 other statements in here. Your statement, I don't care about your statement. You can keep it. So federal holding was probably the hardest time just sitting there. I've got my PSR. I know I'm looking at a ton of time. My dog dies. I'm like, one dog dies, and I'm thinking, I need to let go of everything because I'm probably never going to see anything again. My daughter's going to be grown. She's probably going to be an old woman by the time I come out. I have to let go. So I started kind of letting go. I started the process of letting go in federal holding. So I found God. I found this really cool piece. And I hate talking about that because I don't want people to be like, oh, she's just a jailhouse Christian. No, my walk with God's amazing, but it's not something I advertise. And it's not something that I'm like push on other people. I'm real funny about it. I'm real private about it. So anyway, I got sentenced and I got 9 years. Um,
And at any point in
there
time,
was,
once you get your sentence, are you wavering with the "I found God"? Do you have a little bit of doubt now, or are you still, "I'm strong in it, whether it's 9 or 19 years, I'm doing what
well,
I."
when you're in federal holding for a year, you see a lot of people come through. And honestly, 9 years is a great deal. Of course, I'm a first time offender. I've never been in trouble. All of my evidence was ghost dope. It was based off of just statements made by people. There was no physical evidence. There was no wiretap. There was no hand to hand.
Wait, so they don't
All of
find
my evidence.
they don't raid your house and find drugs or anything, just,
No,
no. What about the firearm or whatever? Is that hearsay as well? Or they find
my 12 gauge
is that
was the legal 12 gauge that I had at my house when they shot me. And they took a picture of it and then they put that into drug trafficking with the furtherance of a weapon. That's how I got that charge. That's how easy it is to get a gun charge with the feds. So, I'm thinking 9 years is bad, but you know what? It could have been worse. Could have been way worse. There was a lot of stuff that happened at my sentencing. It was a shit show. I didn't end up getting, I had originally had a money laundering charge. They didn't give me that. So I don't have any restitution. And yeah, I mean,
so now
I was like,
now you're doing your sentence, you're on a 9-year bid. How do you not get involved in prison politics? How do you just kind of stay your lane and put your head down, do your time, and get through? Because that is not what I did, And like, I think about people will say to me now, like, have you ever thought about doing breath work in prison? And I'm like, not really, dude, because like, who is willing? You're in a place where I'm like, hey, man, let's talk about your feelings again. Like, I used to meet with a mental health therapist all the time, and I would just be like, dude, whatever, it's going to kill an hour. I get to get off the block. Like, are you crazy? We're not doing any deep work here. Are you crazy? I have to go back to the block after this. You think I'm going to go back, like wiping my eyes and being like, hey guys, you just had like this really big emotional release? Maybe down the line in a pre-release or like somewhere else, but not in a maximum security prison. So like, how did you walk the line, if you will?
so I'm kind of a con artist sometimes, but like I talked them into letting me mow that prison. So they let me out to mow and weed eat. I was out like power washing, like they let me go out and do a bunch of stuff, but then they also like the third day that I was there, I saw the warden walk through and I was like, "Hey, we have a library with a DVD player. Can you bring some fitness videos down?" And they were like, "Yeah." "Oh, yeah, I'll have some for you tomorrow." And I thought, that's art of pacification. No way. They brought me all the insanity videos and the P90X. So then I talked to like the union team and I was like, hey, can you get a schedule so that the guards know that when they're going to be taking us over there, then there's no confusion. They're like, oh, yeah, no problem. So then I had a schedule made so I could get over there 3 times a day. So yeah, I did that. I was outside a lot.
And then you
I
started
did a lot of
teaching
push-ups.
ultimately, right? Did you ask for that of like, hey, I would love to be able to teach some of the women here as well?
No, I didn't really want to teach these people anything. I was just doing my own thing and
Did
I
you have
was,
friends or like a group or like, a table that you sat at? Like I know for us, like, especially at the state level and I know at the fed level, like Boston guys stick together. Then when you're in state prison, it's by area that you've lived in. You don't just go to the chow hall and be like, just wherever I feel like sitting. So how did that work for you?
these are women and this was originally federal holding. So people are coming and going, it's more of a transient type situation. But I was just busy working out. People that wanted to get fit, they hung out with me. And so people were cool with me. People would come in and they'd be like, can you train me? And I was like, come with me. Let me show you the way. So I had all these people working out and doing all this stuff. And so that was my crew. That was my tribe.
What
And
about
then,
drugs? I mean, drugs are rampant in the can too,
no,
right? No?
not in federal holding, but I was so far, I'd been clean for 3 years. So I was so far removed from even wanting that shit near me. Here's the thing, if you want drugs, they will appear magically. If they're still like in your realm of possibilities, I feel like they will absolutely appear. Like I remember flying to Aruba. I got off the plane. I was like, I want drugs. And 20 minutes later, I had whatever the hell I wanted. But now I go places and do things, and I don't have that happen because I don't have that switch turned on, if that makes any sense. And I don't know how to
Of course.
explain that.
That's when
But
I
when I was in federal holding, no, I mean, people would abuse their psych meds and stuff like that, but all I wanted to do was work out. That's it.
yeah.
And so when I got my sentence, I had already done a year. So I was going to be going to federal, a federal camp, which I thought I was going to even when I was in there, I didn't realize that there's just not that many women's prisons and there's not that many options, especially in the Midwest. So you're just going to go wherever there's head count. So I got sent to Pekin, Illinois in a camp. And when I was in Oklahoma City at the transfer center, I remember when they told me that I was going there and I was like, a satellite camp? And they're like, yeah. Cause I mean, my points were like super high. And I'm like, what? They're like, they need head count. That's where you're going. And I'm like, okay. And I got there and there was a lot of people that I'd seen in federal holding there. The night that I got there, it was super late. And the alley that I was on was like all the alley where people worked at the commissary and worked at the food service warehouse or it was like the heads of the different divisions. So I got a really good alley. And so when I got there, people lined up and brought me everything I could possibly want. Like I didn't even have to go to commissary the first time because I'm like, well, what do I owe you for this? What do I need to do? And they're like, no, you're good. Because at that place, what was interesting is they would have, welcome bags. They had somebody that would go around and take everybody's stuff because it's a camp, it's a revolving door. So like when people are coming and going, you're like taking their stuff, getting it together. And then the next person that comes in, here you go, here's shampoo, here's conditioner, here's deodorant. And we would just keep that all stocked. So anybody that came in would always have a welcome bag. And they were awesome. Like any sweats, anything that we had, instead of selling them, like there was a lot of us didn't care. So we would just, donate to new people and make sure that we had plenty of sizes.
It's a
Women's
shame.
is different.
Yeah, but it's a shame because I remember when I first went to, even jail or prison, and we're talking 2006, and heroin was a thing, but Suboxone, none of that stuff really made its presence
Right.
known yet. And you showed up, and guys had a bag of commissary, soap, sneakers, all the things. And by the time I left in 2011, up until now, that doesn't exist anymore, as far as I know, because so many guys are so strung out. There's nothing to greet you with because drugs is what's important. And then you come
Yeah.
through, do you have anyone on the outside that can bring it in? Do you want to get some? And the prices for that stuff is so out of control, and it's sad. It's sad because, so many guys, you go in there with an addiction problem. I remember times being in the back of the paddy wagon coming back from court, and I'm so sick, and I'm like, hey, can we switch seats so that I can get out first to get back in and get processed? Because I have to run to the block so that I don't shit my pants and pray and cross my fingers that somebody has something,
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it wasn't like that all the time, and it felt good to be able to make someone's transition who's coming in, like, don't stress about, because, it's like you got to wait for your money to hit your books, and you come in on
Yeah.
canteen already happened that day. See you next week. You know what I mean? There's no I guess, I don't know if it's different now, but they have like tablets. Maybe they have something they can go up to the wall and order whenever they want. I have no idea, but that's not how it
I don't
was.
think the feds do. They don't have tablets yet. Well, maybe they do.
So, all right, so you do 4 years. The CARES Act comes out. Old sleepy Joe Biden decides you get on a list. You're out of here. They send you home, and you're going to do the next 5 years on home confinement with a bracelet, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, well, I did 43 months on it. I think it was 46 months I was going to have to do left.
Oh, so
Yes.
so you get clemency with what, 3 months left on you?
Yes.
Yeah,
I got a
woohoo.
whole whopping 3 months of clemency. I was like, hey, cool.
And then how much federal probation or supervision, which you're still on, right?
Yeah. 5 years.
Okay.
So I've done 1 full year.
So you
And
get a
then-
9-year sentence with 5 years probation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
what do you have left until you're done with supervision?
So I have 4 years left. I'm going to apply for early termination in probably 6 or 7 months. I don't know. I maybe sooner. My daughter and I are co-founding a nonprofit.
All right. We'll get to that.
Transforming.
Hold on. When you So when you come home and you're on house arrest, if you will, do you
Mhm.
feel a sense of relief that you're gone from prison? Are you happy to be home? Or do you find yourself like, this is fake freedom? Like I'm home, but I also can't do shit. What was
It's
that like?
it was fake freedom, and it was also, like, solitary confinement. Like, yeah, I'm at home. I went to my parents' house for the first year, but, when you come out of prison, you also have this thing where, like, you're leaving your community. You're leaving the people that know exactly what you feel like and where you're at, and you're coming into you have loved ones, you have people that support you and rally around you, but they're strangers to you. At this point, they are now strangers. Like, yes, they love you, they love you, you love them. Yes, they care about you, but they also don't speak your language anymore. Like, it's like coming from a foreign, land and coming and being like, okay, well, you don't understand me. I mean, I know you're trying, and I never said that out loud, but there was so many times that I felt like you have no idea what I'm going through, like, and in prison, you have that community and you have that it's community. At the end
Well,
of the day, it's community.
do you feel like prison desensitized you in a good way and a bad way, just a bad way, just a good way? What do you think about that? Because I get it. Like when you come home, it takes time for that. The way you've been living for a certain amount of time and what matters, and then going like, oh, that doesn't matter so much out here. What, and the
So,
respect and there's a lot of things that are different that you have to adapt to again. And it's mind boggling sometimes to
the level of respect out here is weird. Like, what people don't realize is in prison how much respect people have for each other and their things and their areas, and out here, people don't have that respect. I didn't have that respect before, but I have it now, and I can't lose it. And then being on home confinement desensitized me further because, like, you're out. And at first, I was like really upset because I'd want to go and, be around people. Oh, I'm missing all this stuff. I'm missing out on everything. I had all this FOMO. And then I got to where I was like, fuck it. And then once I got free, I didn't give a fuck. I didn't want to go be around people. I want to go to bed at 9 o'clock after count time. I call it my count time. Like, I want to be in bed. I like being alone. And I'm back to just where I just wanna be around I'm around my daughter, I see my dad quite a bit, but I'm alone a lot, but I'm comfortable this way. Like, this is
What's the first thing you do when you get off home confinement? Very
I
first.
went to bed.
No, I'm saying, like, where's the first place that you went once you could come and go freely? Was it Walmart? Was it Chick-fil-A? Like, what was the first thing that you were like, "I'm going to" was it just a drive?
No, I went straight to the plastic surgeon and signed up for boobs. That was the first thing that I did. Yeah, and I told my PO because I wanted him, like, all through home confinement, they wouldn't let me do it. So I told my PO when like, they cut the ankle monitor off, I went to see him, I've got my daughter with me, and she's hilarious, she's a hoot. And she's like my mini me, and she talks like me and acts like me. And we go in there and we're giving him hell. And I'm like, hey, I got an appointment in about an hour with the plastic surgeon because I'm going to get some new tits. And he's like, what? I'm like, do you have a problem with that? And he's like, why are you telling me this? I'm like, I'm just telling you. Like, this is already on plans. I'm going to do it as soon as I can. If it can take me today, I'm going right now. So I'll let you know. And he's like, just let me know. It's fine. Went straight to the plastic surgeon, got all my stuff figured out, did my thing. I got some boobs. I mean, there's a priority level
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
you
I
know?
see that. Um, okay, so I've seen, that you talk about a lot of like, it's crazy to see how receptive people are online and how much support there is, but you also get a lot of online hate and people that just talk shit. So like, did that affect you at first? Did you take it personal? And how have you learned to kind of have a thicker skin towards that kind of thing?
So when I first my daughter was flipping through TikTok and I was like, what is this nonsense? Like, there's just people lip singing and dancing. I was like, what are you watching? She's like, type in prison, you'll see your people. So I did. Started seeing people talk about it. I was like, I can do that. She's like, do it. So I started making videos. Like, I look back on my old ones. I'm like, first of all, I look so different. Like, I look so different and I do everything so different. But I'm like, the first couple that I posted, I was so afraid of hate. And I kept getting notifications. I'm like, oh my God. And what I quickly realized is like the more you can get people to fight in the comments, the more you get paid. Like,
Yep.
and the more people start following you. And like, you want people to be an asshole. Like, I live for those shitty comments. And I realized like they can't touch me. Like I just turned my notifications off. Like I haven't looked at notifications on my phone since about 4 days in on TikTok. I'll go back and look for some. Most of the time I don't see it. Like I have to go hunt. But it was really good for me. Oh, I need to back up because while I was in Pekin, my brother came to me and was like, "You need to start writing blogs. I have a really interesting story you should start writing." And that's when I did my unpacking, was writing. And so I would write blogs to loved ones that had a loved one in prison. I'd write blogs from, to help things to help your loved ones with all this stuff. And then my brother would post it on Medium. And so I have all this content before I even hit the prison door. And about a month before I left, I called him and he's like, "Guess what?" Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was right after we got released from like the first lockdown of COVID. He was like, "Guess what? When I Google your name, it's not a pile of meth anymore. It's your blogs." And I'm like, "I don't know what that means." He's like, "You're trending on Google right now." I'm like, "Cool." Yeah, I can't see any of this stuff. So I was writing from an ivory tower and it was really easy for me because I wrote some of my story. I wrote a lot of stuff. I unpacked so much stuff writing from an ivory tower. And at the same time he was publishing. So basically I'm building my narrative on the outside and understanding and developing my narrative on the inside. So when I hit that door, I already had control of my narrative. Yes, the article that you saw pops up. And I don't know if you know this, but every time the DOJ publishes articles of people that have just been incarcerated or charged or whatever, they update all of them. And because they're number one on Google or one of the top, whatever, it redoes everybody. So if you have a federal charge, it's always going to be at the top of your Google thing unless you're doing so much content that you can squish it down. So like a lot of times mine will be pushed way down. Then it pops back up to the top. I'm like, let's do it again.
Well, it's great. It is great how, and it's not something that I would have ever thought to is how therapeutic pen to paper actually is. There's
Mhm.
texting, there's there's thinking or talking to people, but pen to paper for me has been a huge thing too. And I also, I know I understand the Google search thing because the amount of times, that's been my goal is like, how can I continue to do more things? Because mine is front and center too. And it's like
Yeah.
a Boston Police Department post that's been there for ever since. And it's like, dude, this is from 2006. Like we can't update or like maybe put some other things there. And it's like, okay, well, it's on me to do more things because
Yep.
I'm not looking to erase it. I'm very open about my past, but I also don't need that to be the very first thing that someone judges me off of or bases who I am as an individual for something I did when I was 26 years old.
Right.
Um, so uh, another thing that I like that you've mentioned too is, and we got to get out of here soon.
Yeah, I know.
What do you, what about the people that's like, when are we done paying for our crimes? When have we served our sentence? When are we free to be regular humans again? What do you think? Like, are we done? Are we done paying for our past?
I think we are. I think we are. And the way I see it, I wear my charge, I wear my sentence like a cape, and I have people that get really uncomfortable when I talk about it. They're like, "No, you're so much better than all the stuff you went through. You're so much better than your charges." And I'm like, I know I am. I'm so much better. But at the same time, like I am empowered by that. I'm empowered by what I accomplished and what I overcame. And like when I talk about prison, I don't mean like, "Oh, I was in prison." I was in prison and now I'm doing the damn thing. And to me, like, that's where the power comes from. And yeah, there's going to be people that come on and they're like, "You should be in prison." I'm like, "Oh no, should I?" Like, you have to be a pretty ugly human being to be like giving shit to somebody that's like, "Yeah, I don't fucking care." Like, first of all, what do you think that comment was going to do?
Yeah.
But I
Well,
think it's so important to illustrate that we're all so different. Our backgrounds and our experiences are so different. And everybody has all these crazy but beautiful paths, like just crisscrossed. And sometimes you're going around in a circle, and sometimes you get off and you make another little circle. But it's beautiful and it's life. And when you find your groove, whatever that may be, if it's a program, or if it's just the way of life that you found, I am cheering everybody on. Like, I want people to do good. And however they get there is however they get there. Like, you're not going to always get it on the first go, and you may not get it on the second go. And it may be years down the road where you get a prison sentence and you come out on the other side, you might still fuck up. But it's okay because at some point when you straighten up and fly right, and the day comes, I think, where you're there. You know what I mean? Like, there's a day where you're like, you think all of a sudden you're like, I'm not that person anymore. Like, that person is so far gone. Like, I don't even know that person. I remember her. I remember some of those stories, but I'm not wired like her anymore. I think I rewired myself with my writing, with my content, with having support and a community and being able to bring that to other people, because I think it's really important when you're going through shit to share that shit. Because guess what? Somebody else is going through it in some way, shape,
Mhm.
or form too. And if you throw that out there, because like before I went to prison, there was no content about it. I was alone. Googling ghost dope, and I'm Googling all this stuff. And that wasn't out there. It wasn't even a term. There was like a rap song about it. That's it. You know, I mean, like there was nothing. And now you have these huge communities. You have all these people, and you got to be careful of who you're getting advice from, because people are also full of shit.
On the flip side to that too is that, like, when your time comes, you right, all that stuff. The only problem with that is you're playing Russian roulette, right? Like your life is on the line every time you touch drugs, every time you commit crime, every time, you know how many accident life is I know that it was just supposed to be a fight. It was just
Yeah.
supposed to be something and then never coming home, So to the flip side of that, I would say let's try to speed up when your time does come. Don't, because I think as an addict and somebody in that lifestyle too, is you go, I got time. I'll figure it
Yeah.
down the line. Next thing you know, I'm 38 years old sitting in a detox with 21-year-old kids that just started doing fentanyl. And I'm going like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I
Yeah.
like? Is it now or do I want to go live on Santa Monica in a tent with these younger kids in hacky sack all day trying to get drugs? Like, I'm good. I'm cool. Thank you. Um, okay, real quick. Tell me a little bit about the nonprofit, the relationship that you and your daughter now have, the things you guys are doing. Let's bang that out real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I want to do this again at some point soon when this thing kicks off. So my daughter and I have talked about doing a nonprofit for quite some time, and she's 21 now, but for the past year and a half, she's been the city manager for a city that was actually a nonprofit. I didn't realize that. So for a year and a half, she's been trained up to run a nonprofit. So when I came to her and I was like, I think it's time. Like, let's go ahead and get this going. We've named it Transforming Criminal Justice. The website is not live yet. Nothing's live yet until I get that final paperwork back. She's gone above and beyond to do all this stuff. I've written some courses, exploring and delivering your narrative, all of this different stuff. I want to create a reentry app that starts at the time of arrest. And it's a tool that can be put into the hands of law enforcement because of what happened to me, because that man changed my life by offering some kindness and a perspective at a time that I was vulnerable and ready to listen. I want to be able to give that opportunity to people too. But my daughter, obviously, she went through it. Being in school, the teachers treated her different, and she has some initiatives to help kids, and so we're really excited about this. We're very close. We have our EIN number. We have everything ready to go. We have this badass website. We just can't pull the trigger quite yet. We're about to lose our minds, but I think it's a cherry on top for both of us to be able to work together and to really kind of give back. I made a mess in my community and I hate that. So I want to do as much as I possibly can. And what's interesting is people think that I should hate cops. I don't. I like to talk to them. I love to talk to cops because I'm like, let me encourage you, because it takes somebody that's been through it and had somebody intervene and then give them some tools and some perspective that they took with them here almost 12 years later. And so I started, I have a lot of law enforcement people that I run into at the gym and different places, and I'll talk to them. I'm very open about my life. Yep, I was in prison,
Mhm.
and there hasn't been a single one that's not like, I'd really like to help. I'd like to get involved. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. I have some ideas. So I'm really excited for it. Yeah,
All right.
I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be not just your typical nonprofit, but one that's really productive.
Did you have to have a conversation like adults with, an adult conversation with your daughter around resentment and shame and, and amends? Like, hey, I know I wasn't the best. Thank you for giving me a chance to kind of prove that I can do some things different. And she obviously was receptive to that, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was easier than I thought it was gonna be. I mean, she's my ride or die and always has been. She's been mama's girl forever, and of course, she saw me going down through it, and she'll be the first to tell you that prison saved my life, and she's grateful for that. And so, then when I came back, obviously, she was reserved and didn't know what that was gonna look like, but I've been out since June of 21. I think I finally, I've proven myself, and I'm pretty boring. So
And do you
So yeah,
feel
I've proven myself to her and to myself, and we've been working on getting this nonprofit together for about 8 months now.
does she ever
And
still
so,
say, like, "Mom, you're definitely not," do you think that she casts any doubt ever still where it's like, You're definitely good, you cool," or, like you said, have you put in enough time and effort? Like, people aren't still calling me like, "Dude, you're definitely gonna stay sober," right? Like, people are pretty convinced that they would be
yes,
shocked to see me throw my life away now, you know?
absolutely. I've worked too hard. I've worked too hard, and I made too many steps in the right direction. I'm frustrated with people that take steps the wrong direction. I'm just like, "I've gotta go."
Yeah.
But anyway,
All right,
yes.
last thing. If someone hears your story and still feels like they're too far gone, what do you want them to know?
I want them to know that you're never too far gone. That at some point, if you really sit down, oh my God, get a pen and paper out and start writing out your life. And if you can't write for shit, get on ChatGPT and have ChatGPT help you write it out. But start navigating your story, your background, what got you to where you were, and start creating a roadmap of things that brought you to the wrong places and how you can change that, and triggers that, things that are derailing you. What are those things? And then you need to either avoid it or create some sort of bypass, but it's never too late. I am 48 years old. And I mean, this has been a long, hard road, but at the same time, it's been such a beautiful road. An ugly, bumpy, beautiful road that it's something I'm proud of. So at some point in your life, you can absolutely be proud and look back and be like, yeah, I fucked up. But you know what? This is not the end. Like, there is so much that you can do, and be careful who you take advice from, and find one person that that you feel confident in taking advice from, and you roll with that one. Don't get advice from all these other people. Don't have 50 different ideas going through your head. You have to heal, and you have to take tiny steps in the right direction. And if you get up one day and you're overwhelmed and frustrated, find one correct step in the right direction and just take it. And if that's all you do that day, pat yourself on the back, give yourself some credit, because that's okay. And the next day, you're going to get up and you're going to take that step in the correct direction again and again. And you're going to take a little bit more steps every single day. And the next thing you know, you're going to be running. So get yourself to where you can run.
Amazing. Sabrena Morgan, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. I appreciate your story. Yeah, I will tag all Sabrena's social media handles. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe, like, comment, talk shit, agree, disagree. We're here for it all. We'll see you guys next week.